Hello, class, and welcome to week 5. Hope you're doing well. I know it's sort of over the halfway point, so I'm sure that some of you, including myself, probably hit a little wall. Um, but congratulations on the work that you've done thus far. The weekly video is going to be relatively short because I'm going to post another video of the office hours. Hopefully by tomorrow, Wednesday. Um, but I'll talk a little bit about what you can expect from that video and just in general. With regard to the literature review, I think one of the things that we had a frank conversation about during office hours today is really what's the purpose, right? So as you're writing, please remember that the purpose is not just to regurgitate information. From a research standpoint, I would ask, how is this literature review helpful in terms of replicating the study or building my own study? Like, what would I take from it that's good and what's not so good? From a practice standpoint, what are the implications or the consequences of the findings, the like findings, the contrast in the findings to practice in a specific setting, not just in general. If you're talking about foster care, you can be specific. If you're talking about managed care or care with people with different abilities, speak specifically to that. And then from a policy standpoint, speaking in the context of a policy. So one of the things that I want to say about your discussion and conclusion is I do want them targeted. You can talk about research, you can talk about practice, you can talk about policy. You may be able to talk about 2 of them, but probably no more. But again, specific. I hear a lot of general information and discussions and conclusions, and you can speak specifically to an area of practice with a particular type of intervention, or you can speak to just gender, or you can speak to just race. But what I want you to do in your discussion conclusion is speak to some specifics of a specific population. Don't be general. I think the other part, that we talked about again today are just summary paragraphs with regard to the theme. For those people who are have mostly qualitative studies, it would be important for you to take a look at the video that I'll post on Wednesday, because folks had some really good questions with regard to how might qualitative research differ in presentation in terms of the literature review. So some of you may have some qualitative articles, some of you may have some quantitative articles. What you pull from those articles might differ a little based on the particular type of study. I also, feel that it's important that you really work through your matrix, right? You're going to turn in your paper and you're going to turn in your matrix. And, it's really important to work through that matrix before you start writing. And hopefully you're already writing. Hopefully at this point you're just refining some drafts. But please, if you are in the process of transferring information to your matrix, make sure your matrix is full. And even I might write down some thoughts, just based on my matrix. What did this theme or variable or demographic, what did the various studies say about that? Get something in my mind and write that down as my summary paragraph. The other thing that we talked about today during office hours is the audio-visual presentation. You can tell whether or not you're sort of starting to hit the mark if you've got too much information and you've got to pare it down to a certain time frame. Well, you say, well, Doc, how do you do that? And then you know about all the wonderful work that we've done. Great question. 1, you should not be in your audio repeating things that I can read. You should be supplementing what I read with some additional information. That way you get to pack more information in the PowerPoint. Again, I fully expect to see an audio-visual presentation. Voiceovers, videos, pictures, in addition to slides. I would appreciate it if you had transitions in there and I didn't have to go through it, because that's the best way to go about putting together an audio-visual PowerPoint presentation if you're using Prezi or some of the other forms. But these are the things that I fully expect to see. And so again, in paring down your information, you might decide, you know what, we were looking at 30 years, but we want to focus on, you know, from year 15 to 25. Okay, that's cool. But what you could do in a slide is summarize the first 15 years and then summarize the last 5 years. But through your paring it down, you just focus on, you know, years 15 through 25. Okay, and what that demonstrates to me is that, one, you've looked at that whole 30 years, but you were so sharp that you pared it down and you decided, you know what, this is what we need to focus on. You know, again, when I'm looking at it, I don't, you know, I like detail. I like detail, I like critical thinking, and also what I like, and I like this about the literature review as well as the historical presentation, is that you talk about decision points. You know, oftentimes I hear, Doc, what are you looking for? And I want to start to flip it and say, what do you want to tell me? What should I know? You know, because you're the expert on this. And so you might say, well, because of this, we decided to go this way, or because of this, we decided to put that information. That's what we call, you know, that's what we want in higher ed. That's that critical thinking. You critically thought through, you know, what was the most important information to provide. The one thing that I would say on your PowerPoint presentations is I don't like a lot of text. You know, a couple of lines per bullet points, probably no more than 4 bullet points per slide, no more than 8 sentences per slide. And that's not a request, that is an expectation, okay? We don't want to see, you know, a PowerPoint or some other visual packed with a bunch of text. The point being is that my ability to read your text has to match up with the audio or the time that I have on that slide, right? And you've got a certain amount of time. So please do not pack more than 2 lines per bullet point, 4 bullet points per slide. What else can I say? Yes, that's what I want to talk about. I still continue to receive a fair number of emails about, you know, nuts and bolts of papers, like APA style and headings and subheadings and things of that nature. And those are all fine. But what I'm not receiving a critical mass of are just points about the qualitative aspects of your paper. You know, Doc, here's my topic. I've nailed it down. This is what I'm thinking about. You know, I might get a topic and it's described and it might be four words. And I'm like, what can I do with this? You haven't told me enough. So that's one thing. I like to see more qualitative. You know, I'm not so big on, you know, number of references or number of this and number of that. But I am concerned that I'm not getting questions, you know, about more in-depth questions about your work. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you send me a question, it is quite possible that I might send you a question back and ask you, what's your idea around that? You know, because one of the things that I think is important is that we, in higher education, you know, there has to be some degrees of freedom. There has to be something that separates the good from the great. And for me, that's critical thinking. That's critical thinking. See, I could sit here and tell you everything and then you just go out and do it, but that's not what education is about. Education is about doing, but it's also about critically thinking through. And so I'm gonna challenge you a little bit more to do that. So when you are writing some of those qualitative questions about the depth of your work, I may come back and say, well, you may say, well, Doc, what do you want here? And I'm gonna ask you, what do you think I should know? What are your ideas? And that demonstrates to me that you've put some time and some thought into it, and you're probably, you know, gonna be spot on. And then you'll get a little of assistance from me. Again, I hope this is helpful. I look forward to receiving any drafts that are submitted. Please know that that is a hard deadline, like hard deadline, because I did anticipate this, but I want to try and give you as much guidance as possible. And the last thing that I want to say, 2 things. One, I love to see more people participate in office hours. I can't mandate office hours, but I fully expect that everyone in the class will participate in office hours at least once during the semester. And I'm not saying that you have to dedicate a whole hour or hour and 30 minutes. You can drop in for 10 minutes, say hello to your classmates, ask a question, and be gone. But I don't think that it's unrealistic to ask the class, each person in the class, to spend a few minutes in office hours. I know that we all, we work, we've got family, etc. But I'm wondering if throughout 8 times during the semester, during office hours, that you might be able to carve out of how many office hours, 8 times, an hour and 30 minutes, which is sort of roughly about 12 hours. Can you carve out 10 minutes to participate? I think that's important. And the last thing that I want to say is I continue to be concerned about classmates asking classmates questions instead of directing those questions to me. And I say that because there's certain things where I see a pattern of mistakes occurring. So I really want to encourage you to ask questions, whether it's via email, whether it's during office hours. I'm here to help you, but I can only help sort of if I know how I can help and where I can help. So please continue to do that. There's, especially the qualitative questions on the quality of your work. I love those. Because what I want you to understand is if we don't engage, it's very hard for me to give a blanket set of expectations given the variations in all the types of projects. So it's hard for one set of instructions to address everything in a literature review, especially if it's a mixed methods literature review. Or one set of instructions to address everything in a historical presentation when the policies and the specificity of the questions are so different. So I need you to interact with me and give me an opportunity, to provide you with guidance and, what my standards and my expectations are. But for most, we only got a little ways to go. So let's keep plugging, let's keep chopping. Have a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon. Peace.